The Boston Massacre was one of the first major conflicts of the Revolutionary War. This started because a mob of colonists got together and harassed the British redcoats by means of throwing rocks and other objects at the redcoats standing guard. The nervous guards called for backup, and the colonists, armed with clubs, rocks, and other things, were then fired upon. Colonists say it was a firing upon innocent civilians, whereas the British say it was an armed group of colonists and they were forced to do so. This was used as propaganda, which influenced colonists' opinion about being under British rule, and persuaded more to the Patriot side. After the firing, it was totaled at 5 deaths and several wounded colonists.
Britain! I don't want you here! Go back to Britain!
No!
Go back to Britain!
Go back!
The next important event was the Tea Act. The Tea Act saved the East India Trading Company by making a monopoly on the colonies. Merchants were bypassed and lost business. The tea was the only good with taxes on it. The tea was not expensive at all, but colonists could only buy from the East India Company. This upset the colonists and the merchants greatly, and they protested. This led to the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was a protest against the Tea Act, in which the Sons of Liberty dressed up as Mohawks and threw 342 chests of tea overboard British ships into the Boston harbor. This happened on the evening of December 16, 1773. The British thought the colonists were being barbaric in this protest, and they made the Intolerable Acts.
Also known as the Coercive Acts, the Intolerable Acts were many laws that were passed as a result of the Boston Tea Party. The acts closed the Boston harbor until the colonists paid for all their own tea. These acts also took away certain rights, including banning town meetings. Also, British soldiers stationed in Boston had to be housed in colonist homes. Another part of the acts gave greater power to the governor and changed the colony's charter, which changed how the colony was run. Many colonists thought that these acts were too much to tolerate, which is where the act's name comes from. The Intolerable Acts led to the meeting of the First Continental Congress and later the Second Continental Congress. These acts influenced many colonists' opinions toward the British and made them want to rebel. The colonists did not like these laws one bit, as it is easy to tell from the name they gave them. The British, however, felt that these laws were proper punishment after what had happened in the Boston Tea Party.
Lexington and Concord was one of the first battles of the American Revolution. The mission the redcoats were sent out to do, which was to attack Concord and destroy colonist military supplies, which they only found cannon carriages which were destroyed, along with flour. This slightly crippled colonist military capabilities because it is now hard to transport cannons, which were greatly needed. The task may have been accomplished, but it was at a cost for the Britons too. On the way to Concord, you had to pass through Lexington, which a small force of colonial militia was guarding. They did their toll but were overwhelmed. The redcoats marched on to Concord and were defeated by its colonial militia, while Lexington had sent for reinforcements which arrived before the British went back through it. After the British fulfilled their duty and tried to return to Boston, they were fired upon all the way back, which killed many men.
The Second Continental Congress was a group of political leaders from all 13 colonies. They all met in Philadelphia to discuss the future of the colonies. When the delegates voted on wanting to be free from the colonies, they chose Thomas Jefferson to draft the Declaration of Independence. The Congress also helped to make this country more organized by doing things like authorizing a new currency and starting a post office. The Congress felt that there didn't need to be a war with the British over freedom, so they sent the Olive Branch Petition to the King to say that they didn't want to fight and they wanted their rights protected. However, when a war seemed unavoidable, the colonists needed a way to fight against the British in a more organized manner compared to the local militias. To solve this problem, the Continental Army was formed, and George Washington was chosen to be the commander. Many colonists were not aware of the Congress's meetings because they were forced to meet in secret. If the British found out about this, they would hang the members of the Congress for committing treason. Once the colonists heard of the deeds of the Congress, they were very pleased that America was being set up as its own country. The British were obviously angered by the fact that the Congress had met in secret. Da da da!
The Battle of Saratoga was the first major victory of the Revolution. The battle was won by colonists, and it persuaded the French to give aid to the new Americans. The battle also cut off British supply lines because the Americans had built fortifications that could not be ignored because it allowed the control of a river the British needed to use for supplies. This was said to be one of the greatest battles in America. During this battle, the Americans destroyed the British because they were unorganized, having one entire column stalled in an American fort, and the native allies had left the Britons. The Britons were eventually surrounded and had to surrender, but the general of the army was killed.
The Declaration of Independence was written in 1776 by Thomas Jefferson, and he was assisted by many of the delegates of the Second Continental Congress. All 56 delegates of the Congress signed the Declaration. Some of these delegates included John Hancock, John Adams, and Samuel Adams. The Declaration was vital towards the independence of the United States from Britain. This document is the reason for our freedom of this country. If Thomas Jefferson had never written the Declaration of Independence, we would still be under Britain's rule. The colonists were very happy that the Congress finally took direct action against the British by declaring America its own country. The British were very angry with the Declaration because now they wouldn't be able to tax the colonies anymore, and the money from those taxes were going towards repaying for the French and Indian War, which had occurred years earlier. Finally, finished. Gentlemen, I have written the Declaration of Independence. All who wish to be free from Britain's rule should sign. Right there. Now let's mail this to Britain.